Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. Original ideas are the uncut gems of creativity. A perfect and lovely thing to behold regardless of the genre or medium. They should be appreciated when they come along, or, if Hollywood studios are to be believed, poured out for all they're worth until every single nickel of profit has been wrung from them and entire populations have turned against them. Merchandising. You know, it's a living.
Work the gimmick.
What makes a good sequel? What makes a bad sequel? Your humble idiotic servants are here to sit you under the learning tree and share our knowledge with you in this episode 122, When Sequels Attack. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who once camped out for opening weekend tickets to Star Wars Episode 2 for over a month, only to discover he'd been sitting in front of a Denny's that whole time. He has been my partner in Idiocy for over 2 decades and the champion of Moon over my hammy. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend, and, quite honestly, on this diet, Moon over my hammy is legal.
You and your diet, man. Can't even get through the introduction of the show without you going back to,
Yes.
Well, I've eaten approximately 5 pounds of bacon today, and Doc says I'm doing great. For what? A prize pig?
Your heart is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's grease. That's the problem. You have Crisco instead of cartilage in your joints, but they probably work better than mine. So who am I to really argue? I don't know what's going on here. I was talking just fine in our pre-production meeting, and now I'm like like Jackie Gleason on a bad day.
The goddamn Germans got nothing to do with it.
Anyways,
What do you say? Shut up, one shit at a time.
so you're doing well. I'm very glad to hear about that.
Yes.
It's always good when you're doing well because, well, like they always say, happy life, happy podcast recording partner, something like that. It honestly
rhymes. It really rhymes.
I wasn't paying attention, as usual.
Lord.
Would I lie?
Well, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
I did. I asked, "How are you?" I said,
you
"Greetings
did?
and salutations. How are you, sir?" And then I made my little quip about the.
No, I don't think you even asked me how you were doing. I think you.
Okay,
I
well,
think you just
hold
went
on.
right into your,
How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes. All is well. We have a Snowmageddon 2023 approaching Maine. We've had like barely any snow, which I think everyone ought to thank me because I actually went out and bought a brand new snowblower this year. And the funny part was I bought a new snowblower. 2 days later, it snowed. However, it's that wet, heavy crap snow that
jams up.
Yeah, exactly. That stalls out snowblowers, even brand new ones like mine.
Oh, dear.
So I got about 3/4 of my driveway done, and then I had to shovel the rest because it just was slush.
Oh, gosh.
And then it just snowed the other day, but didn't get a chance to get out and get to it before it started to rain and turned into that stuff. So I didn't even bother. And then the next day I had to go out and scrape when it got warmer. So apparently we're supposed to get a decent amount of snow this time. So this will be the first real run for Uncle Todd's snowblower of doom. So we'll see how this goes.
I talked to, just before we started recording, I was chatting with my sister. It is her birthday today. And she is of the Maine area as well. And I asked her how much you get and expecting it to be at least a number with 2 digits in it. And she says, well, 8 inches. I'm like, really? Snow day for 8 inches? What has happened to the Northeast? We used to go to school when it was 14.
Well, I do give a little bit more leeway for that because I do understand that teachers are coming from farther away now. Like, it's not the case where everybody just lives in the town that they work or teach in. I mean, you know this yourself, sir. You're a commuting type of guy.
Yes, I am.
So, I mean, I kind of give a little leeway there. That plus, I don't feel like being that much of an old bastard. Not yet. Give me another 10 years and maybe I'll warm up to it.
Although the Metro train, they basically have like a snowplow thing on the front. So it's like it just pushes it away and gets us downtown. So
see, now I kind of want to work on one of those. I want to drive a snowplowing train.
Although the best was where not the town I live in now, but the one I first moved to when I moved out here. When I would catch the train to get downtown, there was one particular morning we had a bunch of snow and still showing up to get downtown, and they had an express train run through because the trains were running kind of on an odd schedule. And because it had snowed and it hadn't been really shoveled yet, and there was a lot of it and stuff, as the train came barreling by at full blast, there was this tsunami of snow that just hit all of us on the platform. It was just like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
That is awesome.
Oh, it was amazing. Like, you could tell the rookies from the veterans, because the veterans had their back to what was coming, and the rest of us are looking right at it. Like, it's almost like a pie just coming. You can't get out of the way, and you just get hit with it. So,
like, hey, what's that? That's a snowbank in your face, you moron.
Oh yeah,
you just gave yourself a whitewash. Congratulations.
Indeed.
But anywho.
Yes.
We are going to talk about some movies. We're going to talk about some sequels. But before we get into that, we have
talk about some movies and sequels.
Yeah, actually, you're right.
Kennedy McMahon.
Oh my God! You know what? Let's just push that off as far as we can, shall we?
Indeed.
But we have this little thing that we like to call the Week in Geek, where the man they call Tim educates us on all the happenings, or at least the things that he Googled 5 minutes before the show started.
Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
So what do we have going on this episode in the Week in Geek?
We have the following, sir. First up to bat is from. Gosh, I lost my place. There we go.
We're operating like a well-tuned engine right now.
All right, it's from between your speaking ability and my memory, we're doing great.
Good Lord, we're both going to end up getting committed to a home by the end of the week. That's what's going to be.
It's inevitable. But from it's called cloakmousemedium.com was an article.
I'm sorry, it comes from, say what?
I was going to say medium.com, but it seems to say cloakmouse. I don't know if there's some sort of offshoot of medium, but medium.com.
Are you sure that's not German, like Klaukenmaus or something?
No, it is not.
Oh, it is Cloak Mouse.
Look, he clicked on the link.
I'm kind of, well, I don't usually. I mean, this is your job.
All right, so this is about the show Andor, and a little Easter egg that was called out by the author here. Basically, an interesting factoid was uncovered by, of course, those diligent fans, always looking for an angle, looking for a little something to kind of show
looking for clicks. Let's just say what it is.
Looking for clicks, views, and generating that sweet ad revenue. But nonetheless, that Disney Plus and the Andor series that we were all just blessed with in just a phenomenal series. Basically, if you take the beginning theme song of all 12 episodes and were to layer them on top of each other, one after another, which our dear Uncle Todd is familiar with doing. He produces this show. He performs all sorts of magic and wizardry to bring a polished product to the masses. And here apparently, if you layer all 12, they come together as a very very full-bodied orchestral harmonious theme. And as the author writes, it is apropos, being what Andor is about, which is Andor's journey to the rebellion and the rebellion coming together as disparate parts. So I just thought it was kind of an interesting factoid that I just wanted to kind of bring to our audience, to you, sir, as and unfortunately, the link we're going to post, the audio quality isn't great. It is not a critique on what was done, but if you were to listen to it in a much more sort of crystal clear and well-produced form, I think you would be quite impressed with it. So just a fun little Easter egg from the Andor series.
Which I'm guessing was discovered late at night at the office where someone's like, you know, I wonder what would happen if you took all those theme songs and layered them. Open up GarageBand.
Yes. I was going to say, you got to queue up Insane in the Membrane or something. You know?
I'm just guessing, but I feel pretty good about that guess, quite honestly. That sounds like something back in college that you would have walked into the room and you're like, oh, good God, how'd the fire alarm not go off yet?
Oh, my goodness. And staying within the Star Wars realm, we also have, and, again, we were supposed to record a couple days ago, and Uncle Todd was elbow dropped by Rip Van Winkle, so he had to get to bed a little earlier than normal. Cream of the crop.
Oh, yeah, you're going to go to bed. Yeah, oh, yeah.
I'm putting you in the sleeper, brother.
Actually, that's the Dusty Rhodes bit where he's like, the big sleep, the deep sleep, yeah.
American dream.
Gonna put you to sleep.
Oh, tell us, Dusty, tell us.
Yeah.
He's just a common man.
The American dream, Dusty Rhodes, the best there is, yeah.
But I think it was Tuesday. Sorry, it was Monday night, I believe. Wasn't it during the football game? I believe it debuted,
yes.
And then I think it was online after that. But I did not see it until Tuesday morning on the Metro train. But Mandalorian season 3, a longer trailer, a little more detail, a little more, just a little peek, giving us a peek. So
little if you will.
Indeed. So I believe per free range idiocy guidelines and protocol, we are going to henceforth run through a I feel like going into the
gosh, where are you going with this? I mean, we're already wasting enough time sitting here watching the trailer with people. And here you are, you're going into your like Chucky after 8 Guinness impression.
That's what I was going to say. Is going into like our Chucky.
But no, it's like drunk Chucky. This is like Chucky 3 sheets to the wind. Henceforth and there 2 4. And let me. Like, where are you heading with this, sir?
Oh, just saying. We're going to do a commentary track while watching the trailer.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tim is off his meds. I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh, I haven't had any bourbon yet.
I know. I think that's the problem, actually. It's like that. It's like one of those shows where they're like, "Hey, we're going to have an intervention." Well, I haven't been drinking for a month. We want you to start. But anywho,
all right. Decorum. Got to maintain decorum. All right.
Since when?
All right. So, are you queued up, sir?
I am.
All right.
Are you?
I am queued up.
Right now, he's going to be watching an Ant-Man trailer. It's going to be great, folks.
Look, it's Kang!
Yeah, exactly.
Although I did send Uncle Todd, and it is kind of funny. I
they
wish
all
I had
hate
it with
you, Tim.
with Kane, coming out of the curtain, but the same shot of Mando coming out of the plastic wrap or whatever that is that he walked through when he was like busting that one group. So it's got to be Mando.
All right. I've given you enough. We've stalled for enough time. Are you ready?
Chucky's ready.
All right. How about we do? You're the maestro for this. Can you count down from 3, or you okay?
Heretofore, 3.
Jeez. All right.
2, 1.
Oh my!
Our people are scattered everywhere. Hey, there he is. It's like the 4 horsemen of the Mandalorians.
Which one's Arn?
I really don't like him in that Naboo starfighter. It is such a downgrade.
You got to get over that, sir. You've got to get over that.
What, the Naboo starfighter?
Yes. Just enjoy the show. He's there
he went from a
Baby Yoda?
Luxurious spaceship to like this like tiny thing.
I don't know if it's luxurious.
Hey,
Carl,
Mando!
That was almost like a Ric Flair robe he was getting there.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully comes down those stairs and does a little spin. The armorer.
Yeah. Apollo is Ric Flairing at this time, ladies and gentlemen. Oh,
Wow.
Pelimoto. A little late. May the force be with you.
And fireworks.
I'm curious where that fireworks is coming from.
Yeah.
That looks like Coruscant. And there's space chips.
Yep.
Space chips. Paunch. Oh, we got Jedi with lightsabers. That's a flashback.
That was the one that got me. Like, I don't know if that's a flashback. I'm
hoping that's his new ship. Oh, here goes the airdrop.
Yep.
Air cavalry.
Oh my gosh, those freaking things.
Uh-oh. What's the child going to do?
This right here.
Layeth the smacketh down. Oh, he's getting ready for the people's elbow. Look out, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that is fantastic.
That little guitar part at the end there. Oh, just
yeah.
Mwah, chef's kiss.
Indeed.
Chef's kiss.
Your thoughts, sir?
March 1st ain't going to be here soon enough, folks. I might have to watch that about 10 or 12 times between now and then to tide me over. That looks awesome. It's everything that you're going to want. You get more Mandalorians. It seems like we got Mando kind of taking up the idea of leadership of more like actually kind of embracing the fact that, yeah, he's got the Darksaber. So now technically he is the leader of the Mandalorians.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's got his boomstick.
And you know what I think is actually most encouraging?
Yes.
Zero Bo-Katan in this trailer, which
come
means no.
All right.
Come on, I am such a mark and a shill for Bo-Katan and Katie Sackhoff. Like I don't
know. You've been a little sour as of late.
I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna do Bo-Katan that way. No.
All right.
What I'm saying is why I'm excited for that is because there's no glimpse of exactly what direction this is going. Everything with that character is going to be a surprise, which to me, that's going to be the crux of this entire season is like conflict between Mando and Bo-Katan, that dance.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is where you have, like, in wrestling parlance, you know that these two are going to end up clashing, but you know it's going to be a couple months down the road.
You know what it's like?
So you got to have them dance away from. You got to keep them apart. You got to find ways for them to still interact and all. It's going to be lovely.
It's like when Sting was part of the Four Horsemen. You knew at some point it was going to fall apart.
Well, yeah, that's because everyone turns on Sting. Everyone.
Well, most specifically Flair, right? I mean,
well, yeah, but everybody turns on Sting. I'm pretty sure that his mom stabbed him in the back at one point.
I don't know.
Wasn't that an angle? Like she came out and like gave him a stunner or something? I don't know.
Maybe.
But I am so excited for this show. How about you, sir? What were your impressions with this?
Very much so, yeah. Other than getting over my disappointment about the Naboo Starfighter, I am very excited for this. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a view, and I know you're going to love this because it's the hidden, it's the mystery that we haven't seen, what's going to be revealed to us. But I wanted to see Reverend Jim. I thought for a minute when we were in the cave that was going to be the Reverend Jim.
Nope.
You'd be like, hello, but no. We have to wait until the show starts to see what
Marty.
Christopher Lloyd is going to be looking like. What is he going to be doing, and how is he going to be involved?
Yep. And again, like, you say what you want about some of the other shows. I wasn't. Obi-Wan was good. I mean, for what it was a nostalgia trip. I don't really think I ever have to watch that again. It was good to watch once, but I don't think it's fine. I mean, there's parts of it I will go back to. I will go back to the Vader Obi-Wan stuff a couple times. Other than that, meh. Andor was good. I don't know how much I would go back and do a complete rewatch on it.
I did it with my son, and it was glorious.
It was really good. Book of Boba Fett, I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett. However, Mando is like the Cadillac of Star Wars shows. So I'd be extraordinarily surprised if they managed to botch this.
He's not the Tesla. He's not the Lincoln.
We're, just on the basis of our history with Twitter, I refuse to even mention that car brand. That
the man they called Tim was purposely probing there and trying to motivate Uncle Todd into a.
We shan't be talking about the mollusk.
Yes.
No, we won't be talking about the mollusk. No.
All right. All right, yeah, I'm excited. It was interesting to see. The fireworks looked very reminiscent of End of Return of the Jedi in Coruscant, or unless it's just Coruscant and he's just flying in when they're celebrating something. But I find it funny how that one, X-wing, space chips guy is like all of a sudden landing himself a meteor roll apparently now, where he's like, he went from pulling Mando over to now, all right, you and I are going to be, talking a little bit more, and I'm going to be, it's the old norm effect, I'm going to be giving you some info, spinning some yarns.
Well, you are down one Cara Dune.
Not to be missed.
And that was, she was getting her own show. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that, I'm betting they didn't have everything planned and plotted out, but I bet they had some sort of ideas of where they could go with that and how that might tie in. So you take out that entire show, and if you were like, okay, well, we kind of had this thought of, or it just makes more sense to have an authority figure of some kind who would represent some kind of, law, we don't go for law around here, law dog.
Savvy.
Where's Ike Clanton when you need him? That's what I want to know. Oh wait, he's in the new Avatar movie, which still blows my mind that Ike Clanton is like the badass, like scarred up Marine dude from Avatar. Yep. That I can't reconcile those things in my head. I can put a lot of things together, but for whatever reason, my brain just farts out at that point. Like, nope, sorry, we're not doing that. No, I think that might be part of the reason. Or hey, maybe it's just maybe that's like the only 10 seconds that dude has in the entire season. Who knows?
Yeah.
And they were just like, hey, we need a filler. Perfect. This guy says some things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's gonna be great. Great trailer. Can't wait for season 3.
Indeed. It's good to see Grief in the Ric Flair robe. So.
If he could
Mando,
give us
woo!
Yes, if we could get a woo, that would be perfect. Carl, does anyone seem to be having more fun than Carl Weathers with this stuff? Like this career kind of renaissance where he's like, really?
Yep.
I'm a thing again. All right.
Absolutely.
Good for him.
It's like a damn monster movie.
Oh, yes.
I don't do it nearly as good as Uncle Todd, but
Apollo Creed versus Italian Stallions, like a damn monster movie.
I love it.
That's how it is. That's how it's going to be.
Indeed. And speaking of monster movies,
I like it, Apollo. It's very American. Which, the promote that movie. I know we're going into, well, actually, no, we are talking about Rocky 1, and we'll be talking maybe about a sequel later on. But
indeed,
that promoter was money in the bank.
Oh yeah,
that movie for like the 10 minutes of screen time he had, just perfect.
Yep.
Anyways, you were saying monster.
And speaking of monster movies, well, we thought we got rid of him, but he's back.
Jeez.
Vincent Kennedy McMahon decided to take 2023 and make it his vengeance tour. Good Lord. Holy moly. Where do you want to start on this one, sir?
I just want to crawl under my desk with a bottle of bourbon. That's where I want to start with this one.
Yes.
Yeah. Vince got himself, the board voted unanimously before to go away. And Vince still has more voting power than anybody else and managed to come back and vote himself back to being chairman of the board on the board that had just been A-okay with him walking away months ago.
Yes. And then summarily dismissing, or I don't know if they were dismissed or resigned, but some of the board members that ousted him, of course, are no more.
Well, actually, 2 resigned recently, and one of them apparently was the person who was in charge of investigating all of his funny money settlements.
Mm-hmm.
And those 2 I know resigned of their own free will. I think there was a couple of others that seemed to go a little quieter.
Yeah.
And just sort of, oh, where's he? Oh, we won't be seeing him no more.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're out in the weeds somewhere. It's never going to find them. Oh,
But the story is crazy because he comes back, right? And so since he's come back, what the narrative is kind of forming into is,
well, since he's come back, there's been chaos, where before there was calm, steady hand on the wheel, and Vince comes back, and now we're back to chaos again.
Yes, and apparently the way he justified his return is that he is an integral part of any sort of sale of the company, and so now it's looking more and more likely there is going to be some buyer who is going to absorb WWE, take it off. I don't know if it'll take it off Vince's hands, but it'll basically purchase the company.
Well, it would have to, right? I mean, that's what sale means.
Well, unless he remains a majority holder of whoever buys it, right? I mean,
but who would do that?
If they take it private, then I don't think he could be. But no. I don't know.
I mean, but even if it's public, I mean, how if you sell, I mean, who would buy a minor stake? I mean, because apparently the number that I've heard, and I could be completely wrong in this, is that WWE is currently valued at $6 billion. That's
insane.
Which, I mean, I'm guessing that there might be. I mean, back a few years ago, they were, or the last time I remember hearing this, I think that like the Dallas Cowboys were valued at like $2 or $3 billion, something like that. Yeah. I'm guessing that there is probably an NFL team or maybe a Premier League team that would be valued somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 billion. Like maybe not $6 billion, but close enough you could at least have a discussion.
Right.
But why would anyone buy into a $6? I mean, because it's a substantial investment. Yeah. Why would you buy into a non-controlling?
Yeah,
interest.
I'm probably wrong. I just, from the articles I read, and I didn't, in true form, I did not read any preparation for the show, so I apologize. But I seem to recall reading that if a sale goes through, he would somehow still remain involved, but I don't know if that's like a condition unto which he sells. I'm not quite sure, but but some of the interesting things that have kind of come out of it is, there's been rumors that, Saudi Arabian princes might be purchasing it, which may be problematic because I think there are some outspoken, wrestlers,
well,
that would
Sami Zayn away. He's not even allowed in the country.
Right.
So
I don't know if he's not allowed. He's pretty.
No, I believe that he's not. I believe that they have basically said he's not welcome in the country.
Ah, okay. Oh, I thought it was the other way, that he just chooses not to. I know when Daniel Bryan was with the company, he was another one, I think, who refused. Because just, on principles. But what has been kind of crazy over the last week or weekend was now Tony Khan of AEW is rumored to be, at least part of a buying group.
It's more Shad. It's more more of Daddy's money.
Yes.
Which, I mean, that's got to be kind of I mean, I can see that there might be some interest, but to me, that's like mostly like headline grabbing interest.
Yeah.
Like, do you really think that Shad, who, I mean, because he's the one funding this, like Tony, pulled the whole, like, oh my gosh, why am I not? I'm blowing this. He pulled the prodigal son. He's like, give me my inheritance now, sort of thing. So he can go do his wrestling company.
Yeah.
And you really think Shad's going to be like, yeah, hey, let's go all in on wrestling. Yeah, I've only got a Premier League, soccer team and the Jaguars. Sure, let's go all in on the wrestling. I don't know. But I mean,
you're going from building a company or trying to keep a company going to buying, what is essentially a entire fan base and product that apparently no matter what you do to nuke the product, people hang around. So as Vince has shown us the last few years.
But I mean, I don't know. To me, it sounds like I don't know. To me, it just doesn't smell like it's going to be a thing. But yeah, you got the Saudis, you've got the Khans apparently. Yep. Then there's the folks who hold the contracts for WWE TV, which to me makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Or a conglomerate like Disney, which would be really weird. But then again, I mean, corporate wise, they could distance themselves far enough from the product, that
right.
They could probably be fine. But
shockingly, it was reported that I believe the ratings, like for Fox and for the investment they made to have SmackDown on their channel has not paid off, and I think part of the motivation of the sale is, and I'd like us to take a little credit here because we talked about this, I think, going back a year or a year and a half, but when we were just disgusted with the state of the product and what was going on with it, we talked about the fact that they have this great TV deal right now. When it comes up for renewal, I don't know that it's going to be so great because they're doing pretty crappy. And
well, yeah,
shockingly, that seems to be one of the motivators for the sale is the TV deal doesn't look like it's going to be as lucrative coming up. So
yeah, which is, I think the thing I read was that SmackDown has the lowest per minute advertising rate for Fox, and it's like in a prime spot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is a little bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, so
it's so bizarre and surreal, and as you and I were kind of getting back into the product, we kind of went back and had a Survivor Series roundup show that we did, and we're on the cusp of doing a Royal Rumble one. It's just like it's a very Vince thing to see him come back, cause a bunch of chaos, like you put it, and just ruin the product for everyone. Like, it's just a very Vince thing to do. It's like, I'm Vince McMahon. I'm going to, you guys like what's going on here? I'm going to come in and screw it all up because I'm Vince McMahon.
Well, it's got to be his idea.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. And actually, so it's funny. I was watching Brian Zane's Wrestling with Regret YouTube channel today and watching his best things of 2022 in wrestling. And his best thing was Vince McMahon leaving. And he had to interrupt his own video because then, of course, he had recorded this and then Vince came back. So he has to break into this video that is already done and edited. And he kind of just goes off.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's to me, the worst part about this is that somebody who has, I mean, there were always rumors, just like there's rumors about a lot of folks, but with Vince, it was much more believable.
Yeah.
Because he was the king, he was a king of his company, didn't really have to answer to anybody. And also everyone who was working for him was basically an independent contractor he could get rid of any time. So, I mean, he wielded so much power over people. It's ridiculous. And that, this dude did some disgusting, terrible things and yet is now back where he was before. That's the thing to me that is just so upside down about this whole thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It absolutely 100%. It's less about the silliness that we've been kibitzing about for the last, 10 minutes, but that's the disappointing part. It's like after all that has been said and done and, to have this happen now, and it's just, it's really unfortunate. And, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, I mean, it's just a ridiculous situation. And, it's interesting. The articles around, Stephanie McMahon stepped down. I think she was being co-CEO with Nick Khan. And so she's fully out of the company now, apparently. And, Triple H has been reassuring, I guess, on all the shows that, they're all still in charge of creative, but who knows for how long. And
because Vince has said, like, oh, I don't want to take over creative, pal. It's like, and you've been so honest and forthright so far.
Yeah just like you were gonna go away.
Yeah.
Well, on that turd of a note.
Yeah, thank you for bringing the room down. Appreciate that. We're doing great, Mando and all that, and here just a turd in the punch bowl. Thank you.
Indeed. Well, that, my friends, is the Week in Geek.
All right. Well, smoke 'em if you got 'em, I guess. Not really sure where to go with that. Hey, let's talk about some sequels.
Indeed.
Yay. Anyways, yeah. So we are going to talk about some sequels, and this kind of came out of our pre-production and our on-show discussion about A Christmas Story Christmas, and kind of talking about how that was. I would contend it's 75% sequel, 25% reunion. Because those have been popular over the past couple of years. We had the Fresh Prince reunion. We had I think Martin did a reunion. Friends did a reunion show. There's probably about a half dozen others that I've missed. But it is technically a sequel. which is
yes,
and was done very well, and there was a lot of good aspects. So it kind of got us thinking about, okay, well, what makes a good sequel?
Yeah.
And by the same token, like, what makes a really crappy sequel?
Yeah.
So we'll go into the crappy ones later because, hey, those are more fun to just rip on. But first, we'll start off with the good, which we need to after just talking about Vince McMahon. We need a palate cleanser.
We do. Well, one thing I do just kind of want to throw into this and get your thoughts on, because last episode we were talking about the nostalgia thing, like you said. There's the reunion bit.
Mm-hmm.
As I was thinking about it over the week, it kind of occurred to me too, like if I thought about that movie from the perspective of like my sons, they found it funny, and they liked it, and thought it was better than they were expecting. But I feel like when I'm watching it, or like when you're watching it, I think there are emotional notes that are hitting you and I in a very different way than it is for them.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
And I'm thinking specifically about when he's writing, the whole sequence when he finally plops down and starts writing about the old man.
Yeah.
And especially when you see him kind of take the glasses off and he's having kind of an emotional moment, and then he puts them back on and keeps writing and stuff like that. Like, I do think in some ways your phase of life, obvious, and it's probably an obvious statement because it's the foundation onto which pop culture has been born, built, and grown, right? And it's different phases of life will the content will resonate differently. And so I do think that kind of plays a bit of a role in it, is kind of meeting the audience where they are. That I think is maybe one of the ways when we talk about the heart of that particular sequel. I think that's where some of that heart comes from, is that it just hits some chords for folks like you and I in our 30s and 40s who have aging parents, who have kind of the world without the minute, that you're kind of dealing with, and how that feels. And I don't know that for my sons, that's top of mind, cause, or for, for your daughter is, it's probably not top of mind because they're not thinking, well, my dad's going to be gone tomorrow, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, of course it could happen, but likelihood is low. So anyway, so I just wanted to bring that in just around like how I feel like kind of the phase of life, sometimes plays a role into how that resonates a little bit.
Jeez, just when I thought we weren't bringing the room down any further, and now
I'm sorry. I'm just, just saying.
Couldn't think about her dad just dropping dead at any second. Like, oh, jeez, okay. I'm just gonna go have myself a nice cry and curl up in the corner.
Come on now.
But no, you're absolutely right. Your time in your life does play a part in this, but it also has to do with the amount of time that a property or a character has been in the cultural mishmash.
Zeitgeist.
Well, not necessarily, because zeitgeist is, feel is like that's kind of like the whole culture focusing on it. I just mean like things that have been around for a while. Because the longer you kind of live with something, and this isn't things that just kind of go away. Like, I remember this thing when I was young, and then all of a sudden someone brings it up 30 years ago. I was like, I haven't given it really two thoughts since then. I can't think about necessarily a one-to-one comparison, but but there's things that kind of seem to come up, and A Christmas Story is one of those things. I could see Elf kind of becoming one of those things over the years.
Oh yeah.
Where you might already have actually, but A Christmas Story kind of became this thing because when we were in college, that movie had been out for a while.
Yeah.
But at that point, they started rerunning it, like doing marathons, and it was like every single year. And it's just become that thing. And it doesn't, because it is a Christmas movie, it comes around every year. Like you've got a reminder every single year of this. Oh yeah, hey, that movie, Ralphie, yeah, this. And so it has this. Not only does it have shelf life, it's not getting dusty, or it doesn't get as dusty on the shelf because you're taking it down once a year.
Yeah.
So I think that has something to do with it too.
Yeah.
Most sequels don't have that. They don't, but they do have kind of this life, especially if it has a really good rewatchable factor, or if it's one of those things that is just a kind of once in a generation character, or or a director, for instance, or a story, or is just it becomes a film masterpiece. With either the original, or in a very rare instance, one of the examples we'll have, the sequel becomes considered a masterpiece. And that kind of gives it some more legs. And then sometimes sequels are just that. They're just the second movie or the third movie, or they're a continuation of the story. But yeah, the time of your life of when you initially watch the movie, and then when you're watching a sequel, or when you're rewatching or becoming acquainted with those characters again, totally plays into it. And also the amount of kind of hang time it has in culture also plays a part in it.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the sequel, is that, it I don't know if it'll become to the point of, potentially getting worked into the rotation of the yearly, play that happens with A Christmas Story. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, one thing I wanted to bring up too, are a few qualities that I kind of jotted down around sequels being done right, and using this particular one as kind of the object is, there weren't really any stakes in this, but it was definitely, I think one of the things they did really well, and what makes, I think, a sequel good, is when, it may touch on some themes from the original, but it's not trying to retread everything. It's not trying to redo a gimmick.
Yes, or if it does do that, it needs to either be kind of an homage, in the case of like a sequel that is coming many years afterwards, like this one. Or it needs to be a twist. It needs to be some sort of a joke or a callback, not so much like a retread.
And like one thing I liked, and you saw it in the trailer, was, we saw, kind of the adult Scut Farkus, and, we were like, how on earth are they going to work, Scut Farkus into this, and what are they going to do? And I thought they did a really nice job, where it was, you saw kind of, the adult version of him wearing the goofy, raccoon hat, and doing the stupid laugh and everything. But, at the end of the whole like scene with him, where he's telling Ralphie how, when he kicked his rear end, he's like, that was kind of the turning point for me to kind of, think a little differently about my life. And he's like, I was a terror. And so I again, I just thought it was kind of interesting, where it wasn't like they tried to show us, Scut Farkus still wearing the stupid hat just as an adult and doing something to Ralphie, which is, sometimes what happens in sequels, Blues Brothers 2000. But you know what I mean? Like it,
well, but you want to see progress from the characters.
Exactly. And use the term reunion, right? And so I thought that was an appropriate way to bring him in, and like you said, show some growth.
Yeah. I mean, you either want to see that character progress, or if they're going to be the same, there needs to be a good reason. There needs to be a good reason why that character has not moved, and that can create an interesting wrinkle in the story. You just can't, or well, you can, because many have, like, all of a sudden, like, the second movie is kind of a reset, and now everyone's back to where they were before. You're like, well, wait a minute. It's like, things happen in the first movie, and then all of a sudden the second movie or third movie or whatever, it's just everyone's back to where they were. No, and there's no logical reason for it. Like, there has to be some sort of logic in there, and it has to tell a story. It has to give part of the story. It has its own piece in the story to tell.
A couple other qualities I threw in there: story depth, expansion of the story's world or universe, adding. We just talked about adding another layer to existing characters, introducing compelling new characters, maintaining some character arc consistency. Not having characters kind of go off the rails of what has been kind of established about them. Showing growth clearly, but also not having them, do kind of a 180 in a way. And we'll get into this in some of the ones that were not done right. But yeah, just some thoughts on, just some properties, qualities, characteristics of these, of these, great sequels that we will go through in just a moment.
Yes, indeed. I agree completely.
Why don't you kick us off?
Well, so we kind of went with what we go with. We went with 3 because we're trying we're trying to keep this show under 6 hours. We'll see.
2
how it
a.m.
goes.
folks. We're gonna be done at 2 a.m.
Don't put a pot of coffee on. Of course, the first one I picked is and I would argue slightly in the other direction, but many people feel that this is probably one of the very few times when you could say that the sequel actually exceeds the original. I have heard many people give a great argument for that. I'm not going to dispute it because I think the original and the sequel are both so good. It literally comes down to preference.
Yeah.
There's not much you can argue back and forth about craft, about story, about cast, about acting, any of it, that it really gives that much of an edge to either one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it literally comes down to just one you just like better than the other, and that's just it. And it's not necessarily something that tells this huge story about you. It's just that's the one you like. And I'm going to go with here, of course, The Godfather Part 2.
Amen.
It's I would argue I still enjoy Godfather 1 more than Godfather 2. However, it is one of the very few sequels that you could make a compelling and legitimate and logical argument for it being superior to the first one, solely because of how good Robert De Niro is as young Vito Corleone and how good Al Pacino is as the progression of Michael Corleone.
Yeah.
And then you have, supporting cast and story and all that. And you have all of that. But it is such a great movie because you have a continuing, you manage to get this continuing story of Michael and what he's trying to do for the family, what he's really attempting to do, which builds off of where he was heading. Excuse me. My God, I can't edit that. That's like an iguana crawling out of my throat. Lemon Polar Seltzer. Let's get an endorsement for that.
Good Lord.
But that idea, it's building off of the first movie. Like you can see a line from the first movie going right into the second movie where Michael is. And then we also get these really good flashbacks, which don't feel ham-fisted. That's the thing. Like so many flashbacks can feel that they're just mashed in there because it's lazy writing. Whereas because The Godfather itself, the first movie, was such an epic tale, even though it is kind of, if you look at it, it is a little bit of a small family tale, but because it takes place in like this epic sort of way, that you get into the second movie and it's like, well, of course we're going to have these long flashbacks because the movie it has to be bigger than the first one in order to even, step out of its shadow. All those flashbacks are great because now you're informing the first movie, you're filling in blanks, all of that, and they have such a maintaining of the flavor of the first movie. Like it is just perfect in terms of tone, first to second movie. But yet it also has enough of its own. There's enough little spice thrown in there that you're like, but I can tell this is different. I can tell time has moved on. I can tell we're in a different period. But there's enough there that, again, like you can see the through line right into it. And of course, you have Coppola at the height of his powers. You have Pacino at the height of his powers. You have so many people at like their peak. And in terms of acting, directing, cinematography, all of this stuff is just like, there's so many people who are just like at the apex of their profession and they're making this movie.
Yeah.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
As our good friend Ron Simmons would say, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say with 2, it's Coppola, taking storytelling just taking it next level. The movie is so dense and yet it doesn't feel dense. With the parallelism of the rise of Vito and the fall of Michael and how just artistically well done it is, where, Vito's rise to power is not necessarily just, solely based on menace and the outward execution of whatever power he's amassing. It's actually quite the opposite. Vito's power comes from the fact he's almost like a Robin Hood in a way, and getting to a place where people respect him and know what he's capable of because of the evil that he deals with. And then you have Michael, who is on, kind of the reverse course, where he's doing everything possible to become legitimate and is basically selling his soul in the process, and falling into more and more disarray as he is outwardly using his power in every way, shape, or form, to bend all those around him to his will. And so, I mean, that's why I think it's like next level, because it's like Godfather 1 did phenomenal storytelling of, kind of the passing of the torch and Michael's, getting kind of not so much falling, but getting drawn into the family. And now you have, just that empty blank stare after Fredo is killed at the very end. I thought that was one of the greatest shots in I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Is just that completely silent zoom in on his face, and you realize this guy has no soul moving forward.
Well, and then you think about another thing I didn't mention. Like they did not try to course correct Vito Corleone's early life. Like you say, he's more of a Robin Hood, but they don't try and make him out to be a different character. Like you can totally see young De Niro, Vito Corleone, and Marlon Brando, older Vito. Like there is a cleverness. There is a, like use your head. Like right. I'm thinking ahead, but you can tell like this is a guy who he could go soft because he's not ruthless, because he's not as ruthless as other people. He's just a little bit ahead of them, and he's clever.
Or doesn't seem ruthless. But when he goes back to Sicily,
well, oh no, totally. I mean,
he takes out the Don. Like now, like he is as vicious. Like he's vicious, but to your point, he's almost like Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's a strategist.
Well, he's a strategist, and he can be emotional, but he knows how to contain that and when to use it. Right. He's not like some of the other bosses who might let things fly out of hand.
Yeah.
But because he does still have heart, he does still have soul, you can see where he would get soft. Whereas Michael, like you say, by the end of this movie, you look at him and you're like, that dude's vacant. He's given up everything now.
Yep.
Everything. What kind of a man is this? Because I mean, like like Vito told him, a man who doesn't spend time with his family is not really a man. And here's a man who has just ordered the execution of his brother.
Yep.
What kind of a man is Michael at the end of this movie? Fantastic.
Yeah, I just rewatched Creed 2 with my son, and what I think is very applicable here is Rocky's question to Adonis: Why are you fighting? Why do you fight? And the answer, of course, once he gets his head screwed on right, is he's for his family and their livelihood and that sort of thing. And that is exactly the story here. Is Vito, at Vito's core is his family, at Michael's core is his power, and you see how one completely drains the other. And so Coppola just. I mean, it's such a masterpiece of a sequel. There's really nothing about it that even harkens back to the first movie, other than just, kind of starting out with, like an event and then kind of leading into the story. But after that, the first 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of it, it's a completely different track with when you get to the end, they do kind of the montage of whoever's getting, kind of shot or killed or whatever based on, the chess match, kind of wrapping up. But
today I have settled all family business.
Exactly. And outside of the beginning, the little bit of the beginning, a little bit of the end, all of it is just totally different and just very unique. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it is such a masterpiece and widely regarded as a one of the greatest films.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it, quite honestly, I couldn't think of a better sequel. I really can't.
Yeah.
No. And that's no shade at the others that are in this list, mine and yours. It's not too bad. Well, what do you got for your first best sequel here?
Well, and for the record, folks, Uncle Todd did his picks first, so of course he took all the good ones. So I'm I feel like
all
I'm
good ones. You've got 3 bangers right here. So
all right. Well,
I might have a problem with your third one here, but we'll see.
Oh, come on now. I'm champion of the world. Good old Mr. T.
Okay, just go ahead and spoilers.
Anyways, The Dark Knight.
Yes.
Is my my first pick. This one came to mind. I saw this in the theater with my wife. Was blown away just by and quite honestly, I think it stands out of these 3 movies, and probably a majority of what Marvel has even put out, probably stands as one of the best comic book movies that has been put together. This one, of course, the story of Batman versus Joker, as Batman played by Christian Bale, Joker by Heath Ledger, and just, of course, Ledger's just amazing performance of the Joker in a totally unique way. Just when people thought you couldn't get any crazier than what Jack Nicholson did, Ledger takes it to this just ridiculous level. Between, the stories of how his face got all marked up to the way, as I like to put it, his the way he plays this agent of chaos, who by the time you're about at the 75% mark of the movie, you come to realize a little bit of the impotency of Batman because of the rules he lives by, and how he exposes this in such a way. The way he corrupts who is considered to be the White Knight, which is oh God, I'm forgetting his name.
Harvey Dent.
Harvey Dent, thank you. And the way he just kind of wreaks havoc across Gotham. Really do kind of a unique way of climaxing the movie, which is put 2 groups of people, prisoners and normal citizens, on 2 different boats, give each of them a trigger to blow the other one up and see what happens. And I thought it was just kind of just a great morality play on what is goodness really about, and finding out that it's the prisoners who actually show more sense than the citizens by not blowing them up. So anyway, so I just thought it was just a very very well done movie. It was a different take. It wasn't really, none of it retreads on what happened in Batman Begins. It's a continuation of the story and of the growth of Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne. And of course it has Michael Caine's phenomenal line of, some men just want to see the world burn.
That story, dude. A ruby as big as a tangerine.
Yes.
I mean, oh my gosh. Yes. That's one of those things where it's like, oh, come on, dude.
And really has probably one of the bigger gut punches with, the death of the Rachel character, where you have this situation where they're both, it's a little bit of the Kobayashi Maru, except in in Gotham, where both Harvey Dent and she are in different areas, and he's got them wired up to a bomb. And, I was impressed by, kind of the cojones it took to actually take out a main character like that, and I'm not I'm not a deep reader of the comics. I don't know if that was already done in the comics, and that's my ignorance, but I was genuinely surprised by it. I think it gave it a lot of depth, and is just genuinely a really well done sequel.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, this is no shade at Liam Neeson, but the cast, I mean, good God. I mean, yeah, you've got all the returning characters, Bale, Oldman, Kane, but then you add in Heath Ledger, Cillian Murphy, Aaron Eckhart. I know I'm going to get probably blazed for this, but I think Maggie Gyllenhaal actually is a better Rachel. Of course, we have Morgan Freeman returning, but just based on those added characters, like the cast in this movie is outstanding. The design, the look of the movie, I felt was, to me, it was better. The first one, it was trying to still kind of be, it was still trying to be a little bit of the Tim Burton. movies. Like it was trying to call back to that, the subway and kind of the gothic architecture. This movie to me felt like, oh, and we're dealing with like real life.
Yeah.
It felt more like a real city as opposed to a comic book city, which I was like, that's tough to do and to make all of this work. And it did.
Yeah.
Totally did.
Yep. Trying to think. Sorry, I had a thought come to mind.
And I mean, and I would argue that
going.
it's probably better than like 95% of anything that Marvel did, mostly because Christopher Nolan was not making a comic book movie. He was not making comic book movies. He was making Interstellar. It just dealt with, a guy in a bat suit. He was making Memento, but it dealt with he was just making movies. Whereas Marvel has a certain formula and a certain look and all that, and they do it very well. Yeah, this is a different animal entirely. And this is where DC could have actually built off of this and been like, no, our movies are going to be this. Yeah. And we all know how that went.
Yeah. Oh, the thought I had was two things. One, when you were talking about the tone of it, just the music, like how every time the Joker strikes, there's this sort of very tense kind of music that starts.
Oh yeah, it's unsettling.
It's unsettling. It was intended to be unsettling, done purposefully. And also the ending. I thought it was a great, when you go into a sequel, you wonder how is it going to, build upon or be better than or grow, from the first one. And what a phenomenal ending. It isn't about Batman beating the Joker. It's about, basically Batman and Commissioner Gordon having to now craft a lie, and Batman becoming, in some ways, I don't want to say messianic, but I mean, he's taking the burden of Dent's sins upon his shoulders and going into hiding, basically.
Yeah.
And making himself to be the bad guy to allow Gotham to have its justice and to be able to move forward. And so, really deep for a comic book movie. You know what I mean?
It's kind of, again,
not what you would expect.
He's not making a comic book movie, man.
No,
he's just making a flat out movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a difference. And I'm not trying to throw shade at comic book movies. I love me some comic book movies. But when you throw in someone like Nolan, who is like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm doing it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he left you with some pretty heavy questions coming out of that.
Oh yeah.
It was fantastic. Yeah. All right. So next up for me, and we'll try and run through these others a little bit now that we've gotten through our high point here. But for me, another great example of a really good sequel is Aliens, because it's the same universe, gives you a completely different feel. And the first one is much more of sci-fi kind of horror, very contained, whereas this is much more of an action flick. And as Mark Bernard had said, it's his favorite action flick. He thinks it's one of the most perfect action flicks, and I tend to agree. It is a fantastic action movie in terms of like having some good set pieces, having some really good sequences, but also having good dialogue, character development in very economical ways. But the way that they turn Ripley into even more of a badass, like she was a survivor in the first movie. She survived and made it out. In this movie, she goes from survivor, kind of very traumatized survivor, dealing with a lot of, good God, her daughter's gone, all the people she's gone, like she's thrown into an area and is just a wreck. And through that, again, a survivor, and then an utter badass.
Grade A butt whooper.
I mean, come on. Just insane. And again, a movie that holds up even now because so many of the effects were done practically and done very well by James Cameron, that you watch this now, you're like, yeah, there's very few times when you see something and you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is, 80s or whatever. You look at it now, you're like, damn, this looks good.
Yeah.
Real good. Like holds up better than some movies that were made like 10 years ago. And this movie's what, 30? actually probably coming up on close to 40 years old.
Getting old, Riggs.
But I mean, what else do you want from a movie as far as a sequel? It progresses the story, gives you kind of like the next natural progression. Like, oh, hey, this gigantic corporation finds out that there's this big bad killing machine. What are they going to do? Oh, well, they're definitely going to make sure that everyone's safe. No. How can we make a buck off of this one? Perfect. And Paul Reiser. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Like managing to make Paul Reiser into this kind of like a bit of a menacing character in some ways, kind of in a very Paul Reiser-ish way in terms of his menace, but again, still great and great cast. So many, just like the characters again, you get the characters so right away.
Man.
Yeah. Oh yes, please. I'm just going to battle.
Game over, man. Game over.
Oh my God. Yes. That's just great, man. That is great. Jeez. But yes, that is probably my number 2 selection for one of the best sequels ever. What do you got for yours, sir?
So my number 2 is as we have talked in prior episodes when I think we ranked the Star Trek movies with Jimmy Dice. Did we do that? Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
Kirk. Oh my gosh.
From hell's hot eyes, spit at thee.
Ricardo Montalban, give him an Oscar.
Chewing scenery. Chewing it.
Gosh.
Oh.
You weren't expecting to find us.
Oh my God. That entire sequence. I've rewatched that movie since. Like, it's like when I first saw that entire thing of the thing going into their ear and all that.
Oh yeah.
Scarred me.
Yeah.
Like I've rewatched that recently.
Mm-hmm.
I still can't watch that.
Yeah. Oh, it's very unsettling and very just hard to watch.
Yeah. Oh, but such a great choice for this list because I mean it's so good. And I mean, granted, you can make the argument that following up Star Trek the motion picture is no big deal. Like if you have any action, it's
well,
you're in good stead. But I mean, Star Trek the motion picture was a huge deal.
Yeah.
At the time, and following it up again, almost like Aliens, like you're going in a completely different direction,
right?
In terms of the style of the movie.
Yeah, and turning it into at the battle climax, turning it into basically like submarine warfare. Where you're basically lost in the nebula and they're just flying blind.
Well, and it's one of the first movies, like space movies, that turns space into 3D. Something that Battlestar Galactica did.
Yeah.
In such a way that we were like, oh my gosh, you haven't seen? No, we have seen this before. We saw it in Star Trek 2. I mean, granted, it wasn't as like fluid because they didn't have the technology at the time. But that whole thing where you see like the Reliant and the Enterprise like crossing over and under each other was like, whoa, like you just didn't see that. Everything took place in a very
linear way,
plane thing. And other movies, even in like like the Star Wars movies, which were, for their time, incredibly dynamic, it still didn't feel the same. Whereas like this just felt like, because it was it was using that 3D in a tactical way.
Yeah.
But yeah, total sub warfare. It was great. And you were going to say about Kirk. I cut you
off.
Well,
no. And just, from the beginning, leaning on a character that, started with the original series was unique in a way, right? Because it hadn't been done in a movie before, but turning it into this story about Kirk, facing morality and facing the fact that he can't cheat his way out of the no-win scenario.
You mean mortality?
What did I say?
Morality. Although, with the Kobayashi Maru, I mean, there is a certain degree of morality in that too, as well. So, I mean,
thank you.
You kind of have your cake and eat it too there.
Sure. No. I meant mortality because he deals with feeling, old in the beginning versus, feeling born again. And, really kind of,
Don't not sugar-coat it, Bones. Tell me what you really think.
Yes.
Such a Shatner delivery. Oh my gosh.
And lest we not forget Khan, like a bad marksman, you keep missing the target.
Oh, you know what? I would say I would actually submit this is the most Shatner performance of William Shatner's career.
Oh, God, yeah, especially when he yells, "God!"
I mean, he was like Shatner on 11, dude.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. And then of course you have like the puffy, like the red uniforms, which I know are a big favorite for Jimmy Dice, and so many accessories in this, in this flick.
Yeah, and so you know, just had a lot of really interesting threads to it. You know, the whole idea of the Genesis, you know, missile as a way of creating life. You know, was interesting. You know, Khan and what he was trying to do. I mean, it was it felt in some ways like a very contained movie, and you know, because it's just dealing with those groups of people and kind of the back and forth with Kirk and Khan. But then, you know, really the gut punch, the thing that I think, you know, for the movie watching audience that no one saw coming was, you know, having Kirk facing the fact that he's going to lose something, and it was the sacrifice of his best friend that allowed him to once again come out alive and you know, to live to see another day. And no one saw Spock's death coming, and the way it was done was so well done. You know,
and we've seen it done many times since then in different ways. Totally.
Yeah. And so, no, I mean, it was a very unique outing for the franchise, and really with this, and I mentioned this last episode, but in this case, Star Trek, the even number movies, much like, unlike Indiana Jones, the even number movies are the ones that do the best. And so, you know, Star Trek 2 Wrath of Khan was just top notch in my book. So I had to put this as an example, par exemplar of what a sequel should be.
Excellent. Great choice. Absolutely great choice.
Thank you. What about you?
That was actually one that I kind of wrestled with a little bit. It wound up in the honorable mentions, but I thought about that one quite a bit. I'm like, my third movie is The Empire Strikes Back.
Ah, yes.
I mean,
the hate flow through you.
Irving Kershner taking George Lucas's vision, and he managed to pretty much elevate every single aspect of it.
Yes.
The heart, he managed to add some humor, the style of it,
the relentlessness of it.
Yes.
I remember going to the movie theater with my dad to watch this, and just like, I remember as a kid feeling this like uncomfortable hopelessness, like they're not going to win, are they? You know, it's like, it seemed inevitable. It seemed like they were going to, you know, kick out at 2, so to speak, like in wrestling parlance, but no, the hurt was being dropped on everyone in this one. So
yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's even the moments that are kind of quiet.
Yeah.
There is tension. There's tension under the whole movie.
Yeah.
And like, again, I think Kershner managed to, George Lucas has done a wonderful job in birthing this universe. However, just because you started it and you came up with it doesn't necessarily mean you're the best person to do all of it. And this is the earliest example right here, is that you have someone else come in and make arguably the best Star Wars movie. And it ain't George. It ain't the guy who created it. It's the guy who took it next. And, you know, and if George gave him enough leeway too, because, you know, I believe, if I remember right, Irving Kershner was like one of his professors or something, wasn't he? Or he
might have.
George
been,
had a lot of respect for him. I know that, because he kind of
Yeah.
just was like, here you go.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so good, so good. And like you say, like there is this dread and tension, because at the time when you're watching it, you don't know if there's going to be a third one.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they announced it like, oh, it's a trilogy, because at that point people are like, a trill what? Like, that just didn't exist. That's not a thing.
Right. Yeah, you know, and similar to Wrath of Khan, it has one of the all-time great twists in it. You know, I mean, Spock's death, I guess, wouldn't really be a twist. It's more of a shock, but it had this thing at the end that just is kind of a gut punch where you're like, holy crap, you know, like, he's not just fighting the bad guy, he's fighting his father, you know? And so now it brings this whole other level into the story that, you know, was just not a dimension that any of us came into the theater with, you know, and you're like, holy crap, what the heck just happened? I will also say that this is the movie, you know, we talk about in wrestling, how stars make other stars. This movie makes the Millennium Falcon. I just want to say, I think this is the movie that establishes the Falcon as the ship that all of us, fanboys of the 80s kind of grew up like, oh, that thing is the best. Just because of just all the ship sequences and stuff. I mean, it just had some amazing sequences.
Well, I mean, the movie took place 1/3 on the Falcon.
Yes. I mean, it's a chase for, you're right. 2/3 of the movie is a chase.
Yeah.
And until they get to Cloud City. And so just, all the stuff with Han kind of being creative, trying to outmaneuver them and stuff and everything else was
it's
just
not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
Yeah. And the hyperdrive now becoming the least consistent or least reliable piece of the Falcon now. Oh, yes.
That was just so great. And Carrie Fisher's expression is, it's so good. Just
and dare
we're
I
gonna
say
die.
too,
And what was it? It's actually it makes me think of Gamora's line, "I'm gonna die surrounded by the biggest idiots in the entire galaxy." Like that is literally the thought going through Carrie Fisher's, like through Leia's head, as in the cockpit of the Falcon. Like,
part of our title track, actually.
This is how it's gonna end, huh?
Indeed. I do want to say too, not to sound sacrilegious toward the Church of Star Wars, but do want to say too, I think one of the elements that makes this a quality sequel, Return of the Jedi still, in my mind, a great movie nonetheless that it includes this, but this movie didn't have the Death Star in it. And I think the lack of it was one of the things that made it a very, very good movie. And I'm kind of curious if we didn't have to keep going back to the planet killing machine so many times, what Star Wars could have been, just speculating, because I feel like Irvin Kershner in this one, starting off with the relentlessness of the assault on Hoth, the escape of the rebels.
We didn't even mention Hoth. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, starting the movie in a totally different way than how the first movie started, having the whole Luke and Yoda thing going on where Luke is like, we're now seeing Luke being transformed before our eyes as he's learning the ways of the Force and, coming to discover that, by the end of the movie, there's kind of a reason why his face was in the Darth Vader mask when he had his vision.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, no kidding. It was just incredible. So, I mean, similar in some ways, I'm not saying it's at the same level as Godfather Part 2, but there's dimensionality and depth to it.
Oh, there totally is. Yeah.
And the lack of having some sort of planet killing machine you got to go destroy was actually a welcome change. And so,
although it does set up that second planet killing machine, because I mean, you do kind of get to this point where it's like, oh yes, and now we're going to try and do this other thing. I
kind of wonder though. I'm just saying, I kind of wonder. That's all.
Oh no, and that's a debate for another day. But the fact that you managed to end on a downer, but yet with just enough hope. Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally. So what do you got for your third best sequel here?
My third best sequel was Rocky 3. And I say Rocky 3 because this was the movie, and I know it's going to sound sacrilegious to say this, but this was actually my first entry into Rocky. I didn't see Rocky 1. I happened to see Rocky 3. It was airing on TV. And my dad was a fan of the movies.
We discussed this with Mel. This was your This is your Rocky gateway drug.
It was. And it's funny when I think of this movie in a lot of different ways. It's kind of to take a Gorilla Monsoon phrase, it's kind of like poetry in motion in a way. There's an artisticness to the matches. There's a compelling story going on with a champion or an athlete struggling with loss and with all the questions that come with the kind of beating he takes at the hands of Clubber Lang. There is, the matches, as unrealistic of a boxing match as they are, because I was watching Creed 2, like I mentioned, with my son. And one of the things I like with Creed 2 is I feel like the matches are a little more realistic in the sense that there's a strategy being employed by the fighters as opposed to them just swinging at each other. Like there's ducking, there's, toe to toe, there's putting pressure on the fighters. In Rocky 3, it's amazing choreography. It is amazing choreography, especially the last match. It is, I can never not watch that last match, whether it be on YouTube or when I see it on TV. That the second Clubber Lang Rocky fight is just so much fun to watch, and the energy that I feel when I watch it is always there. but one of the great parts of the movie is, and each of these sequels has, we've talked about, has a little twist or a little, curveball in it, is the pairing up of Apollo Creed as his manager. Yep. And shockingly, much like the Spock death was a shock in Star Trek 2, Mickey's death was a shock in Rocky 3. Like, you just didn't see it coming, and it really brought kind of I don't want to say it caused there to be high stakes, but it kind of like, I saw this as a kid again with my dad, and I just remember feeling like super shocked by the whole thing. Like you just didn't see good guys die. You know what I mean? Like that just wasn't a thing. And so it was that memory of that always stuck with me because it was just such a shocking thing. But the story of how, your rival becomes almost like your best friend, was just such a neat dimension to it that, that you didn't see coming, and just made it that much better of a movie. So that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy it. It's just got this great, and Mr. T as Clubber Lang is phenomenal. I when I watched it with my son, he just started laughing when Lang won the title and he's sitting on his manager's shoulders. And he's like, "I'm the champion of the world." Yeah. It's just like, we're both cracking up. Like, who would do that?
Mr. T would do that.
Mr. T would do it, indeed. How about you, sir? Your thoughts on this?
Well, I was gonna, I did say that I would have some disagreement, and it's a minor disagreement because and here's the way that I look at it. My gut is to have Rocky 2 as the sequel. However, and I think I even said this in our Rocky episode with Mel, that really Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 almost form one movie.
Yeah.
Between like the replay of the end of Rocky 1 that is the opening of Rocky 2 and the way that it picks up almost immediately after the fight.
Yep.
And the fact that there is a lot of like kind of character building dead space in the middle of Rocky 2.
Oh yeah.
It really does feel like if you took that entire movie, those two movies, and mashed them together as one big, I don't know how long the runtime would be, probably like 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah.
You'd be able to then redivide it into 3 acts and it would work.
Yeah.
So in that way, Rocky 3 does make more sense as a sequel, because Rocky 1 and 2 almost feel like it's just, there ought to be an intermission in between them. And then you just, you're right into the second half of the movie, which is the second movie. That's the only nit I have to pick. And it's not even really a nit. Rocky 3 is a great flick because it really does give you like that.
Yeah.
Like Rocky is very disillusioned in this movie in the same way that he is kind of in 2 when Adrian is in the coma.
Yep.
And his illusions of like what's going on. But in 3, his illusions of like who he is, and he finds out like, I've just been fighting tomato cans.
Right.
And I've been just going up against these guys, and Mickey has been protecting me, and now he isn't protecting me anymore. Like that whole thing is a whole new journey, and
he's questioning.
Really
everything.
Works.
He questions everything now because he's, he feels like he's soft because he's a champ, and he's, as Creed says, you've lost your edge.
Yep.
You got to find that
puts
edge.
Him back at the spot of the first movie where he's like, I don't think I can win, or even when he gets offered the fight in the first place and he refuses it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not redoing the first movie, it's doing it in a different way where now he's doubting for an entirely different reason.
Yeah.
Like he's been at the top, and now it's like, well, was I really at the top?
Right.
What is going on?
Yeah.
So it's this whole other thing that puts you back in a similar spot, but it does it for a really good narrative reason that is actually a little bit more layered than what you would normally give a movie like this credit for.
Yeah. Lest we not forget, it introduced into the lexicon mental irregular. And the greatest line by Apollo, no, I shouldn't say the greatest line, but one of the great lines from Apollo Creed: "Stallion, you fight great, but I'm a great fighter."
Yes. Ding, ding.
Oh, love you, Apollo Creed. Love you, brother.
Well, we got a couple of honorable mentions because that's just what we do. Let's just blast through these, and it's be easy for mine because most of mine are ones that you pick. So I mean, really, I had The Dark Knight as well, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan,
Yep.
Rocky II, which we just discussed. However, one that bears like just an extra moment of mention, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Ah, yes.
Holy crap. That movie was, I mean, we talk about blockbusters now. T2 was the, because there were blockbusters before that. I mean, I think arguably, I think they said Die Hard is like the first summer blockbuster movie. However, T2 like took what their preconceived notions of a blockbuster were and blew them out of the water, because the movie was so huge, had an enormous budget for the time, and had groundbreaking special effects, all of this stuff, and then it made all the money when it came out.
Yeah.
And this off of a movie, I mean, Terminator was, was a good movie and was received well, but it wasn't one of those things that like everybody on the planet knew about.
Yeah.
This was, T2, everybody knew about.
Yep.
And no coincidence, Linda Hamilton, much like Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, went from the survivor to utter badass.
Yes.
In that movie. Gee, I wonder, if James Cameron has kind of a methodology at that time in his career. What do you got for honorable mentions, sir?
So mine are Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That is a great sequel in that trilogy.
Junior.
Creed 2, which I as I mentioned twice now, I watched over the weekend. Feel it is a solid sequel. Interesting concept that plays off of the son replicating in a way the mistakes of the father, if you will, and his motivations, but tells a really great story of the father-son dynamic, and really, we've talked about this before. Really brings a very interesting dimension to Ivan Drago and his relationship with his son. Kind of wish they spent a little more time on it. And I think when we talked about this in one of our episodes, I brought up there's a great deleted scene that should have been included in the movie, where Creed sits and talks with Drago's son, and it's just to me that would have been the cherry on top of this. I really wish they included it, because it really kind of brought that heart to that relationship. But anyways, Creed 2, great movie. Star Wars Episode 3. I put this one because this is really kind of the payoff of the entire reason of the prequels. I mean, this is what everyone came to see. This was the main event, and
without even knowing what the prequels were at that point.
Yeah. So no, just I thought it was a very focused and definitely one of the best movies from the prequels. So, and then I had Star Trek 4 and 6, as I mentioned. The even number Star Treks always seem to do very well. Those movies are 4 is kind of like a.
Wait a minute. Wait. You're going to mention Star Trek 6 and you're not going to do your line?
What line is that? Sorry.
Isn't that Cry Havoc?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought I was thinking about the other one in my head was when Kirk kind of walks into the room and he's like, once again, we've saved civilization as we know it.
Yeah, no. I was waiting for you to do your Cry Havoc.
Cry Havoc! Let's slip the dogs of war.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right.
I wonder if he actually knows that he's still living on the show even when he's not here. We're going to have to pay him royalties, actually.
I'll have to ask him. And then lastly, the follow-on from Dark Knight Rises, which, continues the story 10 years later of the aftermath of what happens with the Joker. And well done sequel there as well.
Was it 10 years?
8 or 10 years. But there was a significant amount of time that passes between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
I think Dark Knight Rises gets a bit of a bad rap because
yes,
and I think Batman Begins as well, because I think Dark Knight just overshadows those movies so much because of Heath Ledger's performance.
Yeah,
being so
transcendent. The darkness, I was born in it.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was more like a Sean Connery Bane.
Yeah, you're right. That is a little more Sean Connery.
You adopted the darkness. I was born in it.
Moneypenny.
Things in here don't react well with bullets. Anyways, but because Dark Knight was such a great movie, transcending comic book movies, transcending even what Christopher Nolan did with comic book movies. Without question in my mind, the best of the three movies.
Yeah.
Batman Begins is really good. Just the same way as Dark Knight Rises, I think is really good as well. I think it is a very, to me, satisfying end for that trilogy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's a tough thing to do. I mean, people don't think about that. Like, oh, it's always like this. It's the second movie that's always the best. This and that. And well, yeah, because guess what? You get to set up you get to pay off some things, but then it's all set up.
Yeah.
And you get to really like just torture characters and throw them into like the crappiest positions and all of this. Landing that thing, which I mean, I'll admit, Return of the Jedi. Overall, like, yeah, it's good, but I don't even think it wound up my top 5 in our Star Wars ranking. But
I think we need to redo that.
It landed the plane.
I unnaturally rated Rise of Skywalker way too high. So
yeah, but but it's.
Oh, they stuck the landing on this not just for the movie, but for the trilogy.
Yeah, and
that is
trilogy. That is a difficult thing to do. Again, not just for the one movie, but for 3 movies, and they did it. And
they did.
You get some extra credit for that. Anyways, I just wanted to say that before we moved on.
Well said.
It always bugs me about like, oh yeah, Dark Knight Rises is kind of lame. Like, shut up! Did anyone ask you to make a Batman movie? I didn't think so.
Moving right along.
Yes. So now we're going to the other side of the tracks.
Here's how not to do this.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So sequels done wrong, and we're going to much as the best of the way to do it right, we have a case study here, and this case study is Blues Brothers 2000.
Oh yes.
Dear God, if you could just take all of the things that are bad with sequels, this pretty much represents all of them. Like, just, hey, let's just redo the first movie.
I mean, basically,
let's replace the cast. Let's kind of just redo the story, and we'll change things up a little bit, mostly just by putting them in opposite situations. So now, instead of like finding a guy at a greasy diner, they run a Mercedes dealership. Instead of this, it's this. It's like, come on,
putting the band together, getting out of prison. I mean, literally doing every gimmick.
Yeah.
That was done in the first movie. And
in the entire time, just taking a gigantic dump on the grave of John Belushi, which was wretched.
And not to mention, one of the most non-climactic climaxes that happens in the movie, which is this weird blues concert in some voodoo part of New Orleans or something. And really is just a concert. And then the movie ends. And I distinctly remember watching Dan Aykroyd on, it's like a morning talk show or something. And he's talking about how, we had all our families were there. We had this great time. We got to meet all the musicians and just jam and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's great, Dan. You had a jam session. Me as a moviegoer, that was like, what kind of an ending was that?
Well, it's the same as like when people would say, well, oh no, George Lucas was making those prequels for his kids. It's, you can make home movies for your kids, George. You could actually pay to have people make a really expensive home movie for your kids. Don't inflict it on the rest of us. The one thing I will say is that the only part of Blues Brothers 2000 that is worth a tinker's damn is the soundtrack.
Fair enough.
Is like, I would say 70 to 75, maybe 80% killer.
Yeah.
As opposed to the first soundtrack, which was like 95% to 100, arguably 100% killer, all killer, no filler. There's stuff on the 2000 soundtrack that's meh, but I mean,
no growth of characters, no growth of the story universe, no dimensionality, no depth, nothing. And I know some would say, well, it's the Blues Brothers. What do you mean? But it's like, okay, but the first one kind of resonated for a reason. You know what I mean?
And
like,
the thing is, you violate the character of Elwood. All of a sudden now Elwood is the lead.
Yes.
And that doesn't work. Elwood is not the lead.
Yes.
And that's one of the things you can't do. You can't violate the character. It's what we talked about in like Godfather 1, Godfather 2. Like, they didn't go back and try and remix Vito.
Yeah.
you just saw an earlier version that was
character consistency.
Yes, and again, unless there's a really good reason for it, and there wasn't, just like there wasn't a very good reason of making the movie aside from like, well, let's just make some money.
Right.
Let's get together and have some fun. Like, okay, that's fine, but you could have done that just, for kicks on your own without inflicting it on us.
Right. Absolutely.
So now we're going to have some examples, and we'll try and go through these because I know we're getting a little long in the tooth here in the show.
Well, these are the ones we don't like, so I don't think we'll be spending too much. Well, I don't know.
Well,
we are known for ranting. So
yeah. So I'll lead off with this
Keep it
one.
in check.
My biggest problem here is Pacific Rim 2. I think it was Pacific Rim Uprising or something. It was Pacific. If this weren't a kid's show, I'd have another title for this, but I'm going to refrain.
Thank you,
because this is a family show.
Thank you.
But I loved Pacific Rim, the original. It was a painstakingly crafted love letter from director Guillermo del Toro for kaiju and mecha movies that he grew up with. It was so well done. There was so much detail. It wasn't necessarily, there was heart in it because he put his heart into it. You could feel that this meant something to the director. They took that and they turned that into a sequel that was a cheap action movie that even Michael Bay would have been embarrassed to put his name on. And that's saying a lot. Like, it was horrific on all counts. Bad character, bad writing. The CG was absolute crap compared to the first one. The first one, when I say it was like painstakingly crafted, like the CG in the first Pacific Rim is immaculate.
Yeah.
You can see the gears, you can see the water, you can see the rivets, you can see everything down to the littlest detail was amazing. This movie just did not give a crap. There's like a couple of people from the original who I hope got paid really well to like just whore themselves out. Aside from that, no one else wanted anything to do with it. I mean, here's the difference. Like, in the first movie, it was done so well with so much care that Idris Elba managed to utter one of the most ridiculous lines in cinematic history.
And that is?
Today we are canceling the apocalypse. And you know what? I've watched that movie over a dozen times, and each time I am like within a breath of jumping off my couch and cheering.
Yeah.
It is objectively a horrible line.
Yeah.
And yet it's delivered so well, and
with conviction.
In the frame of the movie, it works. And in the second movie, they couldn't even get out of first gear. It was wretched. But it's like all of the sins of a movie. They tried to kind of it's just bad. Just bad. Just bad. I can't go into it any further because I'm going to have PTSD. And that's actually, no, that's bad. That's bad. You know what? that is, I'm gonna have nightmares. Let's just put it that way.
Uncle Todd is beside himself.
I am. Literally, I'm beside myself saying, why are you talking right now? Shut up and let Tim do his movie. What's your movie?
My movie, kind of in opposition or oppositeness from the sequels done right, is The Godfather Part 3, which is widely regarded as never happening.
Have you seen the redux of this that Coppola did? I have not.
I didn't, but I heard about it.
I've got to see that because I'm curious if he was able to redeem this movie.
Yeah, he
I have heard that it did make it made a market improvement. Of course, I mean, anything would have improved this.
Yeah, because I think he focused the story a little bit more in I don't really say on Michael, because Michael is the focus, but I think he streamlined some of the threads that play out through the movie, and made it a bit more focused that way, I think.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I agree with you. Terrible sequel, probably one of the worst sequels of all time.
Yeah.
However, I will throw in a little bit of an asterisk on this one because I can't necessarily say it's as horrible as Pacific Rim 2, if only because Coppola basically made this movie because if he hadn't, someone else was going to make it. Like literally the studio is like, we own the rights, we're going to do it, whether you're attached to it or not. So he kind of it was like self-defense of his legacy. And he wanted like, okay, give me this amount of time. And they gave him like a quarter of the time. And he had to do it. So it's a mess because Coppola doesn't work fast.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and watch Hearts of Darkness and see how he made Apocalypse Now. He's not the quickest of cats when it comes to making a flick.
No.
So rushing the process definitely didn't work well.
No. And the subplot is really strange because it's trying to build on an actual historical event that occurred with not with the Pope. What am I trying to say? With Rome or the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Where, he's finally, taking the family legitimate. And so it's kind of, in a way it's rehashing a gimmick from part 2.
But I mean, you could also look at it. I think given time, it might have turned into more of a continuation. But you're right; it's totally a rehash the way it is in the movie.
Yeah, and it's a rehash in the sense that one of the big climactic build-ups is when he has that walk with the priest and does confessional with him, where he admits to the murder of Fredo and how it has impacted him. And it's a moving scene, but it's also probably one of the only like high points of the movie because it's like something you're kind of curious to see. Like, what is this? When we leave him in 2, as we talked about, he's this vacant, soulless person. So now it's kind of like, okay, is he kind of getting his soul back? Where's the consistency here? And then basically, just the ending where it's, kind of going for the low-hanging fruit of, of course, he's going to lose a family member now. And that's going to be the thing where, you get the sense he kind of exiles himself and he ends up dying alone. So, it doesn't quite have the same impact because we saw him alone at the end of part 2. And we saw him alone in the end of part 2 for a much more powerful reason than what we see in 3. And so it's just not really well done and probably wasn't necessary. But to your point, Coppola's hand was probably forced. And so he did what he could. Sadly, his daughter was not fit for acting in the role.
Well, I mean, and she took that role on late in the process. I mean, I forget who it was that they were originally had cast. And I again, like the whole thing was, it was given time, would have turned out better. Of course, I think at that point, Coppola had enough of a reputation that the studio's like, well, the last thing we're giving you is time.
Yeah, right.
Because you'll be shooting this movie for the next 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah, but what a woofer. Oh,
what is your next one, sir?
Independence Day 2.
Yeah.
Again, it feels kind of like low-hanging fruit, but I mean, there's barely any original cast. It's dumb ideas, dumb execution, poor CGI. I mean, and it's not like Independence Day 1 was like the greatest flick ever, but
yeah.
I mean, just a gigantic steaming pony loaf of a movie. Rehash, but like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Nothing makes any sense.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That is all.
Yeah. I don't even want to dignify this
so
movie
say
by
we all
further about it. Like,
just gonna leave this over there in the corner and walk away from it.
Exactly. Just let it mulch down and hopefully it'll go away.
Well, and I would say my next one is probably going to get tossed in the corner as well. RoboCop 2. Which had an extraordinarily shallow story. RoboCop 1 being this really kind of in some ways, I don't know if avant-garde is the right way to put it, but it was very different and very violent.
Well, it was much like a lot of Paul Verhoeven's stuff. There was a commentary.
Yeah.
And it's a very kind of like, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek commentary. Like you have to really pay attention because there's people who didn't, who were like, yeah, yeah, this is great. It's like, no, that's not what it's about.
Right.
Same people who are like, they loved like Starship Troopers. It's like, you do realize you're kind of rooting for the Nazis, right?
Right.
Like, you get that that's the idea behind the flick.
Right. Or, like in this case, the corporation owning the police and the corporation, trying to remake the city by, basically shoving all of the, poor people out and just, kind of building everything up. And so,
or as we like to call it now, 2023.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But this one, I kind of likened it to Rocky 3 in a way, because
what?
Well, here we go.
Okay.
The concept of RoboCop is that he is this powerful and somewhat indestructible robot, cyborg, if you will. In this movie, what they decide to do is gimmick it up, and basically he goes against this drug gang whose leader eventually becomes the follow-on or the successor to the original RoboCop. And basically that gang dismembers him. And so this is the big shocking thing, is that they capture RoboCop. They basically cut him up into pieces and dump him in front of his police station, and you have this and it is in some ways kind of a mildly horrific scene, because you just see him kind of like just yelling in agony as he's basically been totally separated. But at the same time, now he has doubts, and he has similar to the comparison to Rocky 3 is, because he's gone through this trauma, he's now having to work through it, and so he's not exactly the bold and brash, RoboCop that we remember. He kind of has to work himself back into having the confidence to go forth and basically go after the now drug dealer whose brain has been basically shifted into what is now the Mark II version of himself. And so it's not a very good story, and it has really very little depth to it. And as you said, Verhoeven's movies are a commentary, and there is no commentary here. This is strictly a gimmick of, we're going to break RoboCop down, we're going to build him back up, and he's going to go fight the drug dealer and bash his brains in. And it was just such a strange ending, because it's like this massive battle has happened. He's taken on a little bit of damage, but it's like, him quipping something with his like partner, I forget her name, but she calls him Murphy. Yeah. And it's just like the movie ends with a quip between the two of them, and that's it. And it was just like that's it. That's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It was just very bad. So I got to put this here. This is a steaming pile of poo-poo. So.
The most awkward part I thought of RoboCop 2 was that time that he made that really weird trip to Washington D.C. and busted Sting out of that cage at the pay-per-view, and then just walked.
God!
I was like, this
high point of
really,
WCW right there, baby.
This really just doesn't seem to fit the narrative at all. Yes.
Oh my gosh, awful.
My next flick is Caddyshack 2.
Oh,
which. This literally physically pains me to do, because I love me some Jackie Mason. I've talked about before. I've been a Jackie Mason fan forever. I've always appreciated his comedy. I listened to The World According to Me ad infinitum, probably enough to drive my parents a little bit wacky as a kid, to just be like, what is a 13-year-old doing listening to this? What is a 13-year-old white, like, Methodist Gentile kid in New Hampshire listening to this New York, like, Jewish comedian on constant rotation? Like, I'd listen to that record like every other day, literally. And I even saw Jackie Mason live on Broadway, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. It hurts me to say that this movie is terrible. But it is
shocking.
It's essentially taking Jackie Mason is playing Rodney Dangerfield's role to the point where he's another real estate developer.
Oh gosh!
Except instead this time building condos out on the other side of the golf course, he's buying the golf course.
Okay.
And turns it into, like, whatever. And it's like it's the problem that a lot of sequels will run into. Like, well, it's the same, but we're just going to turn up the volume.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work in most cases. Now, in some cases it can, but they're very rare.
Yeah.
And I would hold that they're not even. It's not even like an exception to the rule. It's like such an exception that's like an exception to the exception.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And then of course they made it PG as well, which they're trying to make it family friendly, and it's like that's not Caddyshack,
right?
And so you have like the 1.5 minute of cameo that Chevy Chase did here to provide some kind of continuity because ain't nobody else around. I think what was the Robert Stack is playing Ted Knight's role, and it's just it's. I mean, you even have like Dan Aykroyd doing this weird thing. Yeah, it's just terrible. It's terrible.
Nobody should play Ted Knight. I'm sorry.
No, I mean nobody. I mean not exactly Ted Knight's role, of course, but I mean like that authority figure, and it's just it's horrible, horrible.
Give me the old Billy Baroo.
Oh, Billy. That is like one of the best parts because you're like. Ted Knight's going at that like he's like going for an Oscar. Like,
nice.
Like I think Ted really thought like this is the one that's going to put me over the top.
Indeed.
Oh my gosh. So what do you got for your third of the worst here?
Well, I know this will be a surprise because I am all in on Star Wars, but after a few years of distance and some serious self-reflection, I got to put Star Wars Rise of Skywalker here. I'm sorry. I spoke very highly of it a couple of years ago when we did our rankings. I want to have a redo. I think this is an episode we got to do. We got to re-rank them.
Sorry. That scarlet letter is going to follow you for the rest of your life.
No, we're re-ranking them. It never happened.
Not. No,
it never happened.
No, this is like Inglourious Bastards, where we're gonna carve that one onto your forehead. You're gonna take that uniform off now, ain't you?
But with some distance, I mentioned earlier when sequels are done right that there's consistency in the character arc, and this is where Kylo Ren goes horribly, horribly wrong. I know there's a redemption story that is trying to be told here, but quite honestly, they needed to commit to him going the direction that he was going in and not trying to turn him to the light side. They needed to take him to the dark side as intended, and they did not.
It's like in that story that Mick Foley tells in his biography where he has Terry Funk taking him under the learning tree and says, he couldn't be the angel because you weren't being the devil out there.
Yeah.
They did not let Kylo go to that place where he was the devil. They didn't let, figuratively, of course,
right.
But I mean, like he wasn't the bad guy. They didn't let him get to that place. So then the redemption comes off as like, meh.
Yeah.
It falls like
I mean, they committed him once he killed Han.
Yes, but after that,
and they should have stuck with it.
I mean, granted, I would say
he technically kills his mother too, in a way, except she somehow like survives through the Force. But
so here's the thing. I think, and again, I'm gonna get called out for this because I'm just a shill for The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi set him up perfectly to then go over the top as a bad guy.
Yes, agreed.
Set him up to go full-blown heel. And what do? They put him essentially back at the same place as he was at the beginning of The Last Jedi because, we got to reset things.
Right. Yeah. Leaning again on the Palpatine character to be the big bad was, rehashing the gimmick once again.
Not even rehashing, like reviving, like literal smelling salts and like clear.
But rehashing in the sense that he's the puppet master of everything. I mean, he's now the puppet master behind 2 trilogies. If you think about it.
Well, 3.
Well, thank you. Yes.
He's
makes him a triple threat winner there.
Yeah, and we all know how much I hate triple threat matches. It's terrible. I mean, and granted, there are some Rise of Skywalker has some moments. Unfortunately, they're not always the ones that they wanted you to have because they wanted to have their on the left moment, and that felt like that went over like a fart in church.
And we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it is an unearned moment, and the more, like I said, the more I think about the movie, the more I just feel it wasn't what it could have been, and it wasn't what it could have been for all the reasons we've just stated. There were a lot of missed opportunities. There was unearned, just unearned moments. We had to hear that stupid line to "Hello, Manova."
Oh God.
And so I have to put a Star Wars sequel up here as done wrong, because this could have been something, and sadly was a missed opportunity.
J.J. Abrams should be taken out in the town square and beaten about the head and shoulder with a wiffle bat while being dragged through the streets, everyone crying, shame.
Oh, shame. All right. Dishonorable mention, sir.
I've only got one here because I couldn't think of anything to top it. Highlander 2.
Ah, yes.
Right in the original movie, it says there can only be one, and you got one job. You don't sequelize that. There's only one.
Not quite there.
You violated the one rule.
Indeed.
What do you got for dishonorable mentions, sir? Because I might have a problem with a couple of these.
All right. So I went with now I put Rocky 4, which I put disguised as a good sequel because I was a big fan of it until I sat and watched 1 through 5, pretty, not back to back, but in
and you realize it's just like one long training sequence with like a little bit of a framing device.
Basically, when you watch 1 through 3 and then you watch 4, it is very disturbing how thin 4 is.
Oh yeah, thin.
I mean, and thin is being a generous is a generous term. So
you are correct. You are correct.
So I have to put this up because it really is a story with very little depth. It is somewhat of a revenge story, but a nonsensical one at best. And and so I also put 5 as well, which I know features Tommy the Machine Gun, one of the better nicknames I've seen. But at the same time,
just Rocky's kid, like he stole my room.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
terrible.
Go for it. I also put Indiana Jones 2 and 4 to continue my trend of declaring the even number Indiana Jones movies as the not great ones. And then I have Star Wars 1 and 2 from the prequels, and then Star Trek 3 and 5 again to support the odd number ones being poor outings.
What does God need with a starship?
Don't ask questions.
Now, the thing is, and I'm not going to fault your list here because I agree. What I would just like to point out, because I saw a comment on Reddit today. Again, you shouldn't read the comment section, but I just can't help myself because I love misery. And so someone was talking about the JJ. They were talking about Cloverfield because Cloverfield is like turning 15 this year or something like that. And talked about, there was a little tangent that went off about J.J. Abrams and how, the concept is great, trailers are great, but it's the execution that's bad. And then went off on his Star Wars Kelvin timeline reboot. And they were talking about, how, the first one was great. I was hoping then they would go in more of a, quote, Star Trek science-y direction, end quote. But they didn't, so I was disappointed. And I'm like, yes, because once again, we all know, like, even Star Trek movies are good and the odd ones are bad. Well, guess which ones are the more science-y? That all these freaking Star Trek fans, and I'm using air quotes around fans, say they want. Those are the ones they always are like, yeah, that's not such a great movie. Those are all the science-y ones.
Yeah.
The ones they like, those are kind of the swashbuckling action movies. Gee, I don't think that you're being really genuine in what you say you want.
Yeah.
But anyways, I love just taking a swing at fan bases. It's one of my favorite things ever.
I know you do. And at the end of the day, it's all about entertaining Uncle Todd.
Well, yeah, and they're not going to come on the show anyway, so screw them.
Sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's it, folks. Basically, if you want to make a good sequel, just don't repeat yourself and make things make sense. And
tell good
don't be
stories.
a jerk. Yeah, tell a good story, which I mean is really the way that you make a good movie in
Work the
first
gimmick,
place.
don't rehash it. Work it.
Yeah, and that goes for everything except for Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel.
There we go.
And another thing.
So what do you got for And Another Thing this episode, sir?
Mine is a now that
you've used this show like 5 times.
I was just gonna say now after saying don't rehash, I'm rehashing. So
good God, you're going back to the well more times than anyone I've ever seen.
No, I listened to the show.
Are you
over the
getting a cut from this show? Like, are they paying you?
I might be actually. No, I actually
so.
That's right. I did use it recently because we went and saw it live, didn't I? Well,
you did.
I listened to it over the weekend, and they are celebrating 25 years of broadcasting comedic takes on the weekend news. The show I speak of, Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR. If you have not heard this show, you need to listen to it. It is a very funny take on the weekend news. Peter Sagal is your host. There are different guests who usually are of the comedic craft and make wonderful banter about the weekend news and some of the stories that their guests share that call in. So do check it out. It is 25 years of hilarity. Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR.
Very nice.
And you, sir?
Mine is going to be of a more literary turn. I've been taking advantage of the library that is just literally 2 doors down from me.
Responsible taxpayer that you are.
Well, I mean, paying for it anyways. I might as well go check out some books. I mean, geez, try and get some of this money back. And so I've been trying to go through some different books, and it's been nice. One of the ways that I will kind of promote a library is you ain't paying anything for these books. So it for me, I'm more likely to check some stuff out because I'm not buying it. I buy books that I know I'm going to want to read or reread in most cases that I'm going to want to add to my personal library. With books from the library, you can be a little bit more, adventurous because, hey, if you don't like it, oh, well, just bring it back. It didn't cost you anything. And so a while ago, I had read The 3-Body Problem, which is like this high-end, high-minded sci-fi trilogy. And I made it through that first book, and then I started reading the second book, and I made it about 80 pages, and I'm like, what in the hell am I trying to prove? And I put it aside because I'm like, yeah, I just can't do this. It's too much, too high-minded. I can't even follow what the hell is going on anymore, And so then I check out like 3 books at a time. What the crap was that?
Sorry.
What do you do? You playing with your X-Wing over there?
No. It's called I didn't turn the volume down on the laptop.
Oh. So I had this other book ready, and this book is called Sinkable: Obsession, the Deep Sea, and the Shipwreck of the Titanic. It's written by Daniel Stone. And it's interesting because it doesn't focus on the sinking of the Titanic, which is what everything seems to focus on. Like, how did it happen? Why did it happen? Blah, 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 blah. This really focuses on the idea of the Titanic as shipwreck and as like the shipwreck, like the one that always gets referred to. And so it kind of goes into just that idea. And it talks about other shipwrecks by always kind of orbiting them around the Titanic. So basically the description is kind of Daniel Stone spins a fascinating tale of history, science, and obsession, uncovering the untold story of the Titanic, not as a ship, but as a shipwreck. He explores generations of eccentrics like American Charles Smith, whose 1914 recovery plan using a synchronized armada of ships bearing electromagnets was complex, convincing, and utterly impossible. Jack Grimm, a Texas oil magnate who fruitlessly dropped a fortune to find the wreck of the Titanic after failing to find Noah's Ark, and the British Doug Woolley, a former pantyhose factory worker who has claimed since the 1960s to be the true owner of the Titanic wreckage.
Interesting.
This book is wacky and weird, and there's parts of it where like the writer definitely comes out and is just kind of like, yep, and here, let me add a little commentary, tongue firmly planted in cheek. It's a fun read. It's a quick read. It's not overly long. It's like, I think it might be 250 pages, something like that. But it's well worth your time, especially if you can get it from your public library and give it a read. It reads pretty quickly and, like I said, entertaining. So I would definitely give that a spin from your local public library.
Very nice. Very nice.
I thought so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. About that time.
2 a.m.?
Yeah, it's about time for everyone in my house to be able to go to sleep, especially my daughter, whose room is only separated from my office by a bathroom. So right now she's just like, yeah, I've heard all I need to know about sequels from my dad just ranting. So I need to shut this thing down. We thank you all for tuning in, for downloading. If you have not yet subscribed to our podcast, if you have not yet joined the Free Range Idiocy congregation, I ask yet again, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, seriously, what is wrong with you? Why would you not? Is it some sort of defective chromosome or something like that? Or is it just you have a grudge against us because of our firmly held opinions on the rise of Skywalker, which finally the man they call Tim is coming around to see reason on?
We're going to redo that ranking show.
No, we're not. You're going to bear that like a scarlet letter. We're going to tattoo that on your forehead for all eternity. Like I said, firmly held opinions. But if you have not yet subscribed, you can do that by going to freerangeidiocy.com. You can subscribe right there to the Podbean app or download the individual episodes, whatever works best for you. You can also find us on all of the podcast purveyors of your choice. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Pandora. We are on, not the planet Pandora. We're actually on the music Pandora. We are also on Spotify. We're also on Google Podcasts. A whole bunch of others. Just go ahead and search for Free Range Idiocy. You can also find us on the social medias. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on YouTube. We used to be on Twitter, but screw Twitter. We are also available via email. Yes.
Really?
You can talk to us.
Do tell.
Via electronic mail. I don't know if you folks have heard about this thing called electronic mail, but it allows you to send messages via the internet.
Do we have a fax machine? Because that's when you're legit, when you have a fax machine. We have a fax number.
Okay, I wasn't gonna dive into this, but Patrick has found a fax machine.
Of course he has.
So
rummaging in the dumpster behind the building. Jesus.
And that's exactly where he found it, because there's like an insurance company down the hallway.
Oh, good Lord.
And they redid all their offices. They had like 5 fax machines. So he went and he grabbed them all.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Is he going to network them together?
Yeah, he's got all these. I don't know how he's fit. His this closet that he's now taken up residence in, and at the. I'm recording from home right now because essentially I've been forced out of headquarters, partly because of the smell, mostly because of the smell. But he's got his closet. It's like the TARDIS. Like, it seems like it's bigger on the inside. Like, he's got all this stuff in there. I don't know how he even gets in there. But he's got like 5 fax machines in there. Somehow he's rigged them up. And so every so often I get that fax noise whenever I'm there. I'm like, who is sending you a fax? Who's sending anyone a fax right now? And you know what? I actually don't want the answer to that question. I'm scared of what he might be getting faxed to him. Mm-hmm. I'm just hoping I don't get involved in like a RICO case at some point. That's all. That's really what I'm hoping for. I don't know if he's involved in crypto, but this could end very poorly for me. That's all I know. Unless I can get his name on the lease and just get the hell out of there. I don't know. Then he goes from our intern to fall guy. And that's kind of the natural progression of things.
Well, I was going to say, wasn't that the intended trajectory to begin with?
I mean, it was always the backup plan, but I didn't realize it was going to get moved up this quickly. I figured, yeah. So,
yes.
Good thing he doesn't listen to the shows. Anyways, but yes, you can reach us via email. Tim at freerangeidiocy.com. And if you have any suggestions for shows, or if you have any questions, feel free to send those to the man they call Tim, and he'll get back to you ASAP. All right, now it's time for me to finally shut up and hand this over to the less idiotic idiot of the 2 idiots who run this show. Not before I ask the second most important question in all of human history. The first, of course, being, what is hip? The second being, the hell did we learn this episode?
We have learned the following, my friend. We have learned Mando Season 3 is looking to be a firecracker, a high point, just an explosion of celebration as we see the child in Mando return, and Grief Karga is now sporting the Ric Flair sequin gown. So
it'll be a blue milk enema.
Indeed. We are looking forward to it. And hopefully Mando gets a different ship because I just can't stand him in that damn Starfighter.
Sure.
We've also learned Vince McMahon has returned, and all of the drama, chaos, and headaches that come with that have also returned. So,
abandon all hope, ye who enter here, I believe is the phrase.
So the Royal Rumble may be the last pay-per-view we end up doing. We'll have to see how WrestleMania is shaping up from a card perspective. We've also learned sequels are done well when they expand, they explore, they go beyond the borders of the original. When you stay within kind of the safe zone, that's when it's a big pile of poo. So just keep that in mind, and I think we've given you some pretty good examples on both sides of the equation on that one. So if you have any questions, just hit us up on the fax machine or the army of fax machines that Patrick has somehow wandered his way into. And finally, we've also learned that apparently all you got to say is fax machine, and Uncle Todd will go on a 5-minute rant about it. So
that isn't a rant. That was just a story. It was a slice of life.
It was a well-framed narrative.
A human interest story, if you will. Just with a very sad ending.
Indeed. With all that being said, we thank you again. As Uncle Todd has already stated, let me reiterate. We thank you greatly for the listenership, for the downloads, and we do appreciate all those who partake in our brand. As we like to close out, be safe, be healthy, be kind. We need more kindness. And be good to one another. Indeed. But as we like to close things out, Patrick, well, he's going to run up an energy bill now with those fax machines. So if you would please, could you hit the lights on now?
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
Damn!
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you.
For you!
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
Merchandising! Where the real money from the movie is made. Spaceballs the t-shirt. Spaceballs the coloring book. Spaceballs the lunchbox. Spaceballs the breakfast cereal. Spaceballs the flamethrower. The kids love this one.
All of you relax. This is a matter of inconvenient timing, that's all. Police action was inevitable. It's necessary, so let them fumble about outside and stay calm. This is simply the beginning.
You really think you're going to escape the shame, the stench of the Rise of Skywalker?
I would like to see where the Rise of Skywalker landed on your top 13 or whatever it was list we did.
Oh, I'll go back right now. I feel quite comfortable. I think it was down
Please
around
do.
11 or 12.
I disagree greatly.
You do you?
It was above 10 at least.
Hang on a second. You know what? We're going into OT here anyways. I'm going back.
It's going in the Wayback Machine. Here we go.
When was that? VSG, NFL, worst, best. Wow, we've done some. We had the Rise of. We did an entire episode on the Rise of Skywalker. Dear God, what was that like?
You were a part of that, so don't forget that, Mister.
And I'm pretty sure I was like thrashing it quite soundly, as a matter of fact.
I don't know.
Brady Geddon, comic, no holds barred. Where the hell
are you
is
looking
it?
at show outlines, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, I can't find it. Where is it? Where Eternals?
The evidence was destroyed.
No Way Home. Book of Boba Fett. Star Trek bracket. BSG bracket. When the hell did we talk about this?
I think it was early on, man.
I don't think it was that early on. You know what? I still stand by my
I stand by my assertion, as there's no evidence to disprove it.
Exactly. You've got nothing.
It's wafer thin, just like Rocky IV.
Son of a mother, where is this thing?
Oh my gosh.
Who's your captain? Whole new Westworld. Oh, you remember those days?
Oh yeah.
Mandalorian.
Now it's canceled. We spent 5 episodes on that show.
I have no idea where this fracking thing is, but you know what? I know that I trashed The Rise of Skywalker, and I feel comfortable saying that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Uncle Todd embraced it, loved it. Until data shows otherwise, I stand by my assertion.
I'm going to punch you square in the mouth.
Now get the hell out of here!